I have been away for months, almost 6 months without uploading. Not because I didn't want to, but because life got overwhelming. Stress, burnout, university pressure, everything piled up at once. And somewhere in between all that, even simple things started feeling heavy. And when I finally came back to reading again, I started with Think and Grow Rich. And this chapter hit me harder than I expected because it wasn't about money, it was about something I was struggling with silently: procrastination. This chapter talks about something very simple but very dangerous: the habit of delaying decisions. Napoleon Hill calls it the mastery of procrastination, but in simple words, it's, it's just a habit of not deciding when you should. And I realized procrastination isn't always laziness. Sometimes it's overthinking, sometimes it's fear, and sometimes it's just not trusting your own decision. Hill studied successful people and found a pattern. They don't waste time deciding, they decide quickly and they adjust later if needed. But most people do the opposite. They delay decisions, overthink everything, and even after deciding, they keep changing their mind. And the more I listened to that, the more I saw myself in it, which is absolutely true. And modern life example, today procrastination doesn't always look like doing nothing. It looks like watching 10 videos before starting one task. It looks like planning for days but never actually starting, right? It looks like waiting for the perfect time, which somehow never comes. This chapter gives examples of people like Henry Ford, who made decisions quickly and stood by them. Even when others doubted him, he trusted his own judgment, and that stubborn clarity is exactly what created success. And if we talk about now control over influence, one powerful idea in this chapter is this: if you let other people's opinions control your decisions, you slowly lose your own direction. And when it happens, it's no longer your life guiding you, it becomes everyone else's opinion shaping your choices. And this part honestly made me pause because how often do we ask too many people before making even a simple decision? As if clarity will come from outside instead of inside. Hill also suggests something very powerful. Not every plan should be spoken out loud. Sometimes, the more you talk about your goals, the more opinions you invite. And opinions, even when they are not harmful, can still weaken your confidence. So, let's talk about something more like a lesson. Yeah, I would call it a lesson. So, okay. So, the real lesson of this chapter is simple: decide quickly, trust yourself, and protect your decisions from unnecessary noise. And honestly, after reading this again, I realized something about myself. Maybe I didn't stop uploading because I was busy. Maybe I delayed too many things for too long, waiting for the right moment. But this chapter doesn't end with pressure, it leads to something deeper because once you learn how to decide, the next question becomes, can you stay consistent with that decision? And that's where the next chapter begins: persistence. So let's talk about chapter 8. This chapter focuses on one of the most underrated forces behind success: persistence. Napoleon Hill describes it as the sustained effort required to turn desire into reality. Not just wishing, not just planning, but continuing even when results are not immediate. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. If we try to analyze it, why most people fail, we can see that they fail because they stop too soon. The moment things become difficult or uncertain, they withdraw. And that's where most dreams quietly end. The real power behind success will be, he explains that persistence is built from two things. One is strong desire, and the another one is willpower. When you truly want something and you refuse to let go of it, that combination becomes powerful enough to overcome obstacles. People often misjudge those who succeed. They're called stubborn or overly intense, sometimes even ruthless. But what's often missed is this persistence, is what looks like stubbornness from the outside. Figures like Henry Ford are perfect examples of this mindset. He continued his vision even when others pushed for change. In today's world, persistence doesn't always look dramatic. It looks like continuing when motivation disappears. It looks like showing up when no one is watching. It looks like staying consistent even when progress feels invisible. And if we look at the common patterns of failure, one of the most important observation in this chapter is simple. Most people give up right before success begins to show results. A small obstacle, a delay, a setback, and they change direction. But success belongs to those who continue anyway. And the deeper message here is this: persistence is not emotional, it's not about feeling motivated, it's about choosing to continue regardless of how you feel in the moment. Hill compares persistence to waking up from a nightmare. At first, everything feels stuck, slow, and almost impossible to move, but slowly control returns step by step until finally full strength is regained. That is how persistence builds in real life too. And here's the truth: there is no substitute for persistence, no shortcut, no replacement, nothing works without it. It is the foundation that supports every other success principle. And if you ask me what builds persistence and what I learned from the book is persistent persistence is not random. It just develops through a few key things: a clear purpose, strong desire, belief in yourself, and a structured plan you follow consistently. And above all, the ability to ignore discouraging influences. One of the strongest barriers to persistence is fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of not being good enough, and because of this fear, many people stop before they even try again. And this idea becomes even more powerful when you think about it personally, because sometimes it's not that we lack ability, it's that we don't stay long enough with what we start. We pause, we delay, then again we restart, but rarely stay consistent long enough to see the results. Persistence is not something you are born with. It is something you build through repetition, through effort, and through refusal to quit. Because once persistence is understood, the next question naturally becomes: who surrounds you while you're trying to persist? And that leads directly into something even more powerful: the idea of the mastermind. Chapter 9. This chapter introduces something that changes the entire direction of success: power. Napoleon Hill explains that power is not just strength or money or influence, power is organized and intelligently directed knowledge. And more importantly, it is the force that turns plans into reality. A plan by itself is useless, a dream by itself is inactive, even desire alone is not enough. Without power, nothing moves. And that's why the idea becomes central to everything in success. So, where does power actually come from? Hill explains that power is not something you're born with, it is something you build, and it comes from three sources. One is knowledge, the other one is experience, and finally, continuous learning through observation and experimentation. But none of these alone are enough. They only become powerful when they are organized and directed toward a clear goal. And this is where one of the most important ideas in the entire book appears: the mastermind. Hill defines it as the coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people working in complete harmony toward a definite purpose. In simple terms, it is not just working with people, it is thinking with people. When minds come together in harmony, something invisible is created, a third force more powerful than individual thinking alone. Ideas become sharper, decisions become stronger, and execution becomes faster. Today we call this networking, collaboration, teamwork, but Hill goes deeper than that. He says real power comes only when people are aligned emotionally, mentally, and purposefully. Then why most people stay weak? Does anyone can answer? Most people try to succeed alone. They depend only on their own knowledge, their own ideas, their own thinking, but that limits power because no mind alone is always limited. History shows that every major success story had this principle behind it. Henry Ford didn't build success alone, he surrounded himself with thinkers, innovators, visionaries, and through that connection, his own thinking expanded beyond limitation. Even large movements in history show the same principle. When people align their thoughts toward one purpose, even millions can act as one force. That is the real meaning of collective power. And the truth of this chapter is power doesn't come from isolation, it comes from alignment when the right minds connect in the right spirit for the right purpose. Extraordinary things begin to happen then. And this is something I started thinking about personally. Maybe success is not just about working harder alone, maybe it's also about who you allow into your thinking space. Because the people around you don't just influence your life, they influence your directions too. Hill also warns about something important. Not all influence is helpful. Negative thinking, discouragement, doubt from others, all this can weaken your direction over time. So, the real idea is simple: choose your environment carefully because your thinking is shaped by the minds you stay closest to. And when you connect this chapter with everything before it, decision, persistence, and now mastermind, you start to see a pattern. Success is not one action, it is a system of thinking supported by discipline and reinforced by the right people. So, if there's one thing to take from these chapters, it's this: your thoughts alone are powerful, but your combined thoughts with the right people are unstoppable. And that is the real power behind success. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want me to continue with the next chapters in this storyline style, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and comment which idea hit you the most. It genuinely helps me know that what content you want next. And I'll see you in the next one.